Now to our discussion segment, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, Agoa, has been a game changer for Nigeria and other eligible sub-Saharan African countries since its inception in 2000. By providing duty-free access to U.S. market for over 1,800 products, Agoa has bolstered economic growth, promoted economic and political reform, and improved U.S. economic relations in the region. However, with the new administration in the U.S., the future of Agoa remains uncertain. Will it be renewed? And if so, what changes can be expected? To address these questions and more, let's dive into the implications of Agoa for African countries and explore potential alternative trade arrangements. Dr. Ekechukwu, you're welcome. Dr. Ekechukwu is an economist. It's a pleasure to have you on Business Express.
Thank you very much, Musa. It's my pleasure.
Well, first of all, reimagining U.S.-Africa trade relations. Can the Trump administration make Agoa more mutually beneficial despite emerging trade wars we are seeing?
Agoa, from the beginning, was meant to be a mutually beneficial relationship between African countries and America. It was supposed to be a win-win relationship, you know, because this was something that came as a bill to their National Assembly, their own assembly, and passed as an act. So it's been a law in America to have this kind of relationship where African countries and African countries with their exports will just bring in duty-free exports. In fact, for America, it is going to actually bring down cost of items that are coming from Africa. And you know, Africa is probably the largest suppliers of raw materials, maybe after China. And so America was supposed to receive all these at very low rates of duty and so prices. This was actually to check any kind of inflation that may come into America through such importation from Africa. African countries were also supposed to take that, to run with them, to be able to have their products go into America, and more of those products go into America at very low cost. But unfortunately, I know only a few countries of Africa are benefiting more from Agoa, and many Nigerians don't even understand what Agoa is and the benefits therefrom. Unfortunately, for 25 years of existence of Agoa, we have not benefited much, except probably a little petroleum product exportation to America by Nigeria. But the private sector have not benefited from Agoa. That act is ending by September this year, 2025. And it's expected that if it finishes, there should be a renewal. But this only depends on whether the current president of America considers it necessary to have a renewal of Agoa.
But why wouldn't he consider it necessary? Because in the first place, some critics say that there's somehow imbalance in the relations because we talk about mutual relations. Because at the end of the day, we somehow tend to export raw materials, and when it gets there, it's come back as finished goods. So it's somehow not really balanced in a way.
Yeah. When you also know the kind of president that they have today, two things. Does he have this kind of interest where our products, oil and many other agricultural products, will be exported to America and then at almost no cost? And this is a man who drives governance as if it's a private sector. So he's interested in all optimization of opportunities. So I don't possibly see him wanting to allow African raw materials coming to America as duty-free. But we may not be able to predict so much around that. And secondly, the question, if anybody measures what benefits African countries have had from Agoa for 25 years, the question is, we have actually not optimized the existence of Agoa with us. And so you probably may think that it's not necessary to actually renew because you know, these countries deal with statistics. The statistics will show the volume of exports that have come from Africa to America to benefit from Agoa. So, and they also check how and what they have benefited from it. If the statistics are not telling them, giving them any positive news, then they may not want to renew.
Okay, should Nigeria be concerned about potential tariffs on its energy export because Trump is demanding that OPEC lower its oil prices? So should we be concerned about likely tariffs on our energy exports?
Yeah, we shouldn't be worried because it's an export. And so even if they charge those, we pay, they transfer the cost of the exports to their people in America. And of course, what it means is that the prices of petroleum products will increase in America if they start charging such things on our petroleum products. So we shouldn't worry us so much because it is that cost which will be passed over to their people, which may also lead to some kind of inflation in America, and so it shouldn't worry us. So what should worry us is whether demand from this country will reduce from America. That's what should worry us.
Before I touch on a tariff, I think it's good that you mentioned how you know the oil price, if they should impose tariff on our exports, will pass it. I mean, it will be passed to the consumer, which is the normal rule of demand and supply. But the thing here is, he talked about exploring more oil so that he can somehow break this OPEC monopoly. How does this put, I mean, this action, don't you think it will put Nigeria in a very bad position?
Yeah, of course, you know, the American shale oil, when it comes out, usually they have ways of influencing price. When you see OPEC Plus, they come in as trying to push their oil into the market, and that usually will affect the oil price. For us, when oil price goes down, it will affect us as a government, but it also benefit Nigerians because that also means that the international oil price that will determine our own petroleum prices in Nigeria will also come down, and the petroleum product pricing will come down in Nigeria. But it will also reduce our revenue generation from oil, and so it should affect. And of course, we already did our estimates, our budget estimates and estimates on oil, and we have pegged it at a particular price. And so if it goes below that price, what it means is that we're going to be having more deficits in terms of what will fund our budget.
Okay, now this argument about tariff and seeing how Trump is transactional about how he relates with the outside world, what do you make of this tariff position? Does tariff lead to a win situation for a country that you know, is trying to protect its industry?
What is going to happen? Well, what it's trying to do is to bring back American manufacturers that actually went to some other African and Asian countries to establish their factories. If they see them bringing from those Asian countries back to America, to export from Asian countries to America, what they will do is just to come back to America to reestablish their factories. That's probably what he wants to achieve. But in terms of how it increases the cost of living in America and probably the way it's going to affect inflation, that is just one way his administration is not looking at, because it's actually going to affect America and Americans in the years to come.
Okay. Yeah. Now, talking about uncertainty, if Agoa is not renewed due to U.S. Congressional delays, what alternative trade arrangements do you think we should consider, or should Nigeria consider? You
know, there are a lot of trade treaties that Nigerians are signatories to. And all we have to do is just to take seriously, because there are a lot of things we can do with African countries. African treaty, there is Abuja treaty, there are many things, ECOWAS and many others that we have with China, we have with European countries, as the case may be. All we do is just to refocus our export to those countries where we have those treaties, where we can actually benefit from those agreements, those trade agreements that we have signed with all these other countries. So all we want to do is just to look at some other countries and some other continents where those agreements are beneficial to us and then concentrate on them.
Now, talking about other agreements, AFCFTA is one of it. How can Nigeria leverage its population, ingenuity, and expertise to somehow maximize gains from the African Continental Free Trade Agreement?
Yeah, to the extent that we continue to improve on our productivity, to the extent that we continue to increase our manufacturing capacity and sector, to that extent we can continue to benefit from AFCTA. Now, because we are not producing so much, and because we are also, even at the extent we are producing, we're not taking advantage of that particular trade agreement that we have. We already have a desk, we already have an office managing that agreement. We need to do more. We need to do more in terms of advocacy, talking to Nigerian business people so that we benefit from this. African countries are all there waiting for these products to come in, and they just come in and go, free entry and free exit. So that's actually what AFCTA is all about. So we need to take advantage of it and ensure that we maximize and even optimize what we're going to get from it. Because right now, it is as if that agreement is still on paper. We haven't started actualizing it, and we need to do so.
Okay, talking about actualizing it, just briefly before I let you go, just what do you think we need to do to put ourselves in the position that other trade partners would like to come to Nigeria and do business?
Yeah, a lot of advocacy. I have hardly heard anywhere in the TV, radio, newspapers, or even social media, anybody talking about AFCFTA. We need to ensure that every day we open our radios and TV and social media, we should be talking about it. Let Nigerian exporters talk about it. Let Export Promotion Council talk about it. Let NEBSA talk about it. And so if we continue to talk about it, Nigerian exporters will continue to get knowledge and know about it. And again, I think also that the organized private sector will need to, of different states and of course NASEMA, we need to talk about that so that Nigerians will know. We need to communicate more to exporters and do a lot of advocacy.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ekechukwu. It's a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you very much, Musa. My pleasure.